Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to make this set of fixed step ladders for the Messy Shed project. They're really simple to make and you can have a lot of fun decorating them as well. I've added lots of paint splodges and splatters and a little paint covered rag as well. The cutting list is down in the description box below, and coming up next is a list of the tools and materials you'll need. So let's get started. We're going to begin by constructing the front part of the ladder, so the actual step part. And because these steps are different sizes, I've just written on mine in pencil 1, 2, 3 up to 6, just so that if they get muddled up I'm not putting the wrong step in the wrong place, so that's a good idea. And then we can erase those numbers before we actually attach the step to the front leg. So I'll just slide those out of the way, and we're going to begin by making the pencil marks on the front legs for where we place the steps. So just take one of them, turn it onto its side, and we're going to begin the markings from what will become the bottom edge here. And I'll give you the measurements in millimetres first, and then I'll give you them in the inches. So the first one is 7 millimetres from the bottom edge, and 25, 45, 64, 83, and 104. And then in inches, that's 9 32nds of an inch, 1 inch, 1 3/4 inches, 2 1/2 inches, 3 9 32nds of an inch, and 4 3 32nds of an inch. And do that on the other leg as well, and do it with your rule rather than just going by the measurements you've just made. That way they'll be more accurate. Like that. And then making sure that you're working on the bottom edge, just take a small piece of fine grade sandpaper, and I just want to round over what will become the front edge of this long leg. So just holding it in your hand, sweep the sandpaper towards you, and we're just rounding off that front corner. Like that. Do the same with the other one, and you just want to bear in mind that you want these pencil lines to be showing on the inside like that. That will be the inside of the leg, so that one should be over there. So my rounded edge is at the front, and then we'll be joining in the slats like that. So if that will be like that with the pencil marks on the inside, I want to round off this edge here. So just sort of think about that before you start rounding. Doesn't really matter, you just have to do your pencil marks again on the other side. Okay, like that. So I've dispensed some glue onto my piece of card, and I've got my cocktail stick here. So pop one leg to one side, and then bring in your rung number 1. I'm just going to erase that pencil mark first, just because it's easier than doing it once the steps are all attached, because it will be quite a sort of flimsy piece. So just apply glue to one side, and then you want to position the step so that it sits just above that pencil mark. press it into place. Bring in the second step. And the same thing again. I was trying to do it then so that my hand's not in the way. I was going to try and do it left-handed, but I probably wouldn't be able to line it up. Like that. I'll just get a spare cocktail stick. A little bit of glue on there. But again, this is one of those projects that's going in the messy shed. We want it to look old and well used and rustic, so don't worry too much about glue splodges on this. And then we'll be applying some paint splashes as well, the bit that I'm looking forward to. I think I've said before on the shed projects, but it's so sort of liberating really to be able to be quite messy, not have to be so particular. And it's always so much fun as well, making things look old and used and aging things. Part of our hobby that I really do enjoy. Just checking if I rubbed the number off the last one I did. And if you wanted to, you could just leave one of the rungs off. Make it look like one of the rungs is actually broken off. Okay, so once all of your steps are in place, leave that to dry off. And if you want to carry on working on your worktop, don't pick it up, but just sort of slide it along into a safe area to dry off. If you try and pick it up, it might all just fall apart before the glue has a chance to take. And then we'll attach that remaining leg. Once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry so that you can handle that without it falling apart, apply glue along each end of each step. Lay it back down and bring in your leg. And then you want to position the leg so that each step is just sitting above the relevant pencil mark. And at this stage, don't worry if it's not sort of touching or joining properly, because we have got that graduation, don't forget. So get the sort of first couple into place and then squeeze together. And then you can get the next one or two into place and again squeeze it all together. And it's just because we haven't got an exact fit. So at this stage we just want the glue to sort of start taking. And do those bottom two. And you can lay it back down on your worktop if that's easier for you. Press it all in, even if you have to sort of force it. And just sort of hold it together until the glue begins to take. And then once it does sort of start to dry off, you can have a look and reposition any steps that you need to. And then because we want that sort of slight incline going up, you can hold on to it gently at the sides and just jiggle it a little bit like that. And you'll find that it evens out. So rather than having one straight leg and that one going in, they'll both sort of slant inwards, and it's only very slight, so it's only I think 3 millimeters from the bottom step to the top. And then what I would normally say at this stage would be to hold that down on your sandpaper and sand it nice and flat, but with this project I don't want to. So a couple of the steps are a little bit wider, overhang in there at the edge, but I want it to look like that, so I'm going to leave it. So that piece can now be left to one side, and we'll start on the back part of the ladder. So the back part is a little bit easier, so I haven't written on the supports, it's just sort of narrowest to widest going down. So pop those to one side, and again we're just going to make a couple of pencil marks for the placement of the supports. And the first one should be 12mm from the bottom, like that, and then 87mm from the bottom. And the other support will be flush with the top. And in inches, that is 15/32 of an inch and 3 7/16. So do that on both back legs. And this time we're going to apply glue to each end of each support. Pop that one up there, just a bit much on there. Shouldn't do that really, wipe the glue off with your finger. That one there. That one down there, and then the top one flush with the top of that first leg, and then sitting above the pencil lines. Just place that one there, and you can bring in that other leg, line up your pencil marks, and again we've got that slight angle, so sort of as you press it together, give it a little bit of a jiggle, and that will even up the sides. If it tries to sort of come apart like that at the bottom, just press it in, just to get that glue to begin to take. And then once again you can hold on to that as the glue sort of starts to dry, so that it doesn't ping apart. Once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, and you can handle that without it falling apart, erase or sand off the pencil marks. They will still be noticeable even under stain or varnish. And then these two pieces are ready to stain, and then we'll attach the top part once these are glued together, and we'll stain it actually in place. It's easier to do it that way. For mine, I'm going to be using this dark oak wood dye, and I've got a little plastic tray here to rest them on once I've given them a coat. If you're using wood dials, make sure you shake it really well. I've just done the front so far, but I just wanted to show you where the wood dye or stain doesn't take over the glued areas. It's made for a really sort of nice bit of wear and tear, I suppose, a bit of patination, which I really like on old things like this. Let that dry off for a moment and make a start on the actual ladder part. Again, that glue residue has made for some nice sort of worn areas. And I'm going to be sanding away some of the wood dye as well, to give a little bit more wear and tear along the steps and at the top and everything. put that to dry and I'll do the other side of the back piece. Both of those pieces are now completely dry, but before we attach the front to the back like that, I just want to make a couple of little string loops at each side, and these would have acted sort of like a bit of a hinge. So take a sort of pointed tool, and I'm using this old electrical tool, and you just want to lay it on your worktop and then just press the back of the leg against it, and all we want to do is make like a little nick in the wood. And I haven't measured for this, I'm just doing it probably 1 millimetre below that top step. So just press down, and I'm just pressing on the leg, I'm not sort of pressing on the step as well. Like that, and that will just make a little notch there really that we can then thread that string through. You can just about see that there. So you want to do the same thing again in the same place on the other side. Like that. And then sort of down at the bottom as well, so probably just above the second step up. And again on the other side. Like that. So it really is just 4 little tiny nicks in the wood that we can fit the string through, and this string that I'm using is less than 0.5 of a millimetre thick, and it's actually used for rigging on model boats. But any sort of string or cotton that you've got, and then you might just need to make a slightly bigger notch in the wood to fit it through, because that's going to be doubled. Okay, so cut off a piece of string, a lot longer than you'll need it, and I'm going to tie a knot in one end, like that, and then I want another one probably about 3/4 of an inch away, and it doesn't have to be exact, it really doesn't, it's just so that you've got 2 knots on the inside of the ladder. The first one is always easy, but it's always difficult to get the second one exactly where you want it. So just sort of make a loose knot, and then you can move it along your string before you tighten it. So just like that. And then pull the 2 knots together. So they're sort of side by side. Hold on to them and then trim your string. You only want to leave maybe 3 millimetres, 1/8 of an inch above the knots. So you'll end up with a piece of string like that, a knot at either end and a little bit extra string hanging over there. And you want to make 4 of those. And don't worry about them being exactly the same length, but just get them as close as you can. I didn't actually cut a piece of string off there first, and you probably save string by doing it that way, so just start by using the string from the roll. That's 3. And this is another one of those little details that I often talk about. So if we just stuck the 2 pieces together, people probably wouldn't look at it and say, well, how does it open? But because this is there, they look at it and it looks more realistic. And I really like little details like that. never think when you're sort of making miniatures that a detail is ever too small or too insignificant, because all those little tiny details that you put in go to the sort of overall realism of the piece that you're creating. And that piece of string there is a little bit longer, but it doesn't matter. So we're not gluing the string, we're gluing the two pieces together and just sandwiching the little pieces of string between them. I just need to get some fresh glue. So apply glue to the back of the long legs. And then take your first little piece of string, again put the knots together, and the knots should be on the inside, so you might need to find, or use a cocktail stick rather, to find the little notch that you made. It is there. And then stick that into the notch. I'm going to have to get my hands in the way, sorry. And then I'm just using a cocktail stick to press it down. And the same with the other three. I'm just holding it into place there with the cocktail stick. And as long as you can get part of it to stick, we'll be sort of sandwiching it between these two pieces. If your glue has begun to dry like mine has, you can apply a little bit more, and I'll put a little bit more on before we glue them together. So you want the knot just on the inside of that leg. And before I made that little notch with the scribe, I had a go with a cocktail stick, but I didn't think it had worked. But actually looking on here now, I can see that it had. So if you wanted to lay the ladder across a cocktail stick and just press it down, you could do that as well to make the little notch. And I'm going to apply a bit more glue. You can apply a little bit on top of your string, and then we just want to stick this down on top of the back piece. And I want those sort of discoloured pieces there showing through, so that it's sitting centrally and there won't be much of an overhang, and so that the top is flush along there, because that's where our top part will go. So make sure it's nice and level. We'll probably have about a millimetre overhang, if that. And then you can pull your little pieces of string out a little bit further. Give it a press to sort of sandwich them firmly between the two pieces. Keep checking that you've got a nice flush top there, so that we've got a nice straight part for our top piece to glue onto. Press it all down without pressing on the steps. Press down on the legs at the side. Okay, when you've got a sort of layer of wood dye on a piece, you'll probably find the glue takes a little bit longer to take. So once again, hold it down. I'm just going to use my cocktail stick and get rid of that excess glue. Although again, I find when you've used the wood dye, the excess glue does remove a lot easier when the piece is dry. I suppose the wood dye is giving it a sort of coating. Whereas with sort of plain natural wood, the glue tends to soak in a bit more. Okay, and that feels like it's sticking nicely together now. So I'm going to put that to one side to dry. And there's just one little thing to do to the top piece before we attach it. So we're just going to round off 2 corners along one long edge of the top piece. So again, you can just do that in your hand. Fine grade sandpaper, just sweep it over the edge. Other side as well. Like that. And then bring your ladder back in, and you can apply glue to those top edges. And if you're not doing a messy shed, you might have like a landing where you've got the entrance to an attic or a loft, and you could make one of these to stand there. So I'm just attaching that so that's flush with the back of the ladder, so flat against the work surface, and I've got an even overhang at either side. And I'm just pressing that on. I am just going to remove a little bit of that excess glue. Even though I don't really mind on pieces like this. Just don't want it to look too obvious. Now I want this to dry completely before I then give it the coat of wood dye. So I'm going to pop that in the corner of my worktop, and I'm going to make a start on another project. Once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, you can stain the top of the ladder. Once again, that can be left to dry. So while the top part of the steps are drying, I just want to make an old rag to hang on them. And I've got a piece of sort of linen fabric here in cream, and I've cut a corner just over 1 inch square, about 1.25 inches. And here I've got a bowl of tea, so I just added hot water to a tea bag and then took the tea bag out more or less straight away, and I've let that cool down. So I'm just going to dip the cloth in there, and I just want it to sort of brown up a little bit. So I just want to pop that in there for a minute or so. Okay, so that's been in there for about a minute now. Give it a swish around. Let it drip off and then sort of squeeze it out against the edge of the bowl. And then hang that somewhere to dry. And I've very conveniently got a radiator in front of my desk, so I'm going to pop it on there. The wood dye on the top part is now completely dry as well, so I'm going to use a piece of medium grade sandpaper, and that's 180 grade, just to age the ladder even further. And I'm going to start where sort of natural wear and tear would occur, like on this top piece. And I just want to sand to take away some of the wood dye and reveal the sort of natural wood beneath. But also in places I want to sort of actually wear away the wood, so it looks like there's a slight indentation. So to do that, I've got the sandpaper sort of wrapped partly around my thumb, which will create that sort of dip. As you can see, that's just starting to go there. And I don't want to go too mad. But if you watched any of my other videos where I age things, you probably know that I will go a little bit too mad and not know where to stop. Just because I enjoy this part so much. A little bit along the edges where hands may have been over the years. on the base where it would get knocked about. Definitely at the bottom of the legs where it would have been stood. And then I want to go along the front edge of some of these steps and actually onto the step as well. Where feet would actually be stood. And again, I'm actually wearing down that part of the step. I folded the sandpaper in half. And then on that one I want to wear it away over that side. And that one I can actually get through with my finger. And see, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but how the wood is becoming thinner where I'm working the sandpaper. And that's what I want, to give that illusion of feet going up like that. So I'm going to do it sort of on each side of the step. Or opposite sides rather. And don't forget the inside of these back legs as well, and you can sort of fold your sandpaper into a little square and you can get in there like that. But you can also work from the back as well and sort of go along those sides, making some little dents and things. And I've also sort of dented the front of the steps as well, just again by sanding along that front edge fairly vigorously. So we're getting there. And I think I'm going to leave that part of the edge in there. And then to add some paint splatters, I've got here all these little pots of different coloured paint, which I got from my local DIY store. And I've got some white as well. And I've got the little cloth that we aged up in the tea just there. And I've also got this ceramic tile, and I'm going to apply the paint with a sponge, or upholstery foam rather, but it's nice and spongy. And I've got a big piece here, but I'm just going to tear some smaller chunks off. And I'm just sort of tearing off a little piece for each colour I've got. I've got 6 there. There. And then I think I'll start with the white. Just give it a quick shake. And then I just actually want to dab a little bit onto the sponge, like that. And then just dab that off onto the ceramic tile. And then I finished with the paint pot. And then I don't want to pick up too much at all, so I'm dabbing most of it off onto the tile. You don't have to use a tile, you might just want to use a piece of card. Maybe try it on the back somewhere, it's not going to be quite so obvious. And that really is just the pressure you want. It's hardly, the sponge is hardly sort of touching the wood. And this is really just a sort of neater way than, you know, doing paint splatters. And you can do it a little bit harder in places. Might have been a bit of a paint spill. Again, don't forget to get it onto those back legs as well, and you can find a little sort of corner of the sponge to do that. Pick up a little bit more paint. And I think that's probably enough for the white. I'll just pop that down there, get rid of that piece of white sponge, and then go on to another colour. This is a lovely, it's called violet, lovely sort of violety lavender colour. I'll take a smaller piece of sponge for this because I don't want much of this colour. Start on the back, which gives you a little bit of a practice as well, and when you start off with these things you're always a little bit more heavy-handed, so always start somewhere that you're not going to see. And I don't want this to be as prominent as the white. Oops, just did a big splodge there, but it's alright, just wipe a little bit off. On that top there. A little bit of dried paint there. That's enough for the purple, I think. Let's take a bit of this lovely blue. Again, use as few or as many colours as you want to. Do what you like with it. This is a lovely colour. And you can use a small paintbrush to do this if you wanted to, rather than a sponge. I just think with a sponge you get more of a sort of splattered paint look. But you also might want to use a bit of sponge and a brush just to get some different effects on there. And overlap as well with the colours that you've already put on. Do a bit on the rungs there like that, maybe somebody stepped in some paint. Like that. Get rid of the blue. I want to use some of this lovely yellowy green. I'm actually just going to rip this bit of sponge in half. Just want a tiny little bit. A bit on those strings as well. And as you're sort of going on, have a look where you haven't got anything. Maybe dot a little bit in. If you've got any areas that look particularly plain. That's a great colour, that yellow. Like that. And then let's have a bit of this pink. And I think I'll leave it at that. Again, dot most of that off. That's a nice colour as well. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there in danger of sort of doing a little bit too much. So I'm just going to prop that there a moment, and then I just want to take the cloth and just dab it against some of these colours on the tile. The white's actually dried up there. A bit of that yellow. So I can wipe up some of that white. And then you can sort of fold it in to really sort of blend them all in. I'll do it on the other side as well, just lightly. And I'm actually just going to take a little bit more of that white, just from the end of the brush there. I'm just going to pick a tiny little bit of that up, blend that in. Oops. Just pull off some of these threads, but you can leave some if you want to. And that's that. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of tube, and you may have seen me use this to create cup rings on some of the other pieces in the shed, and it's actually just the top that comes on a paintbrush, the protective sort of top part, and I always keep those. And I just want to pick up some of that white paint, like that. I'm just going to do a ring on the top there, like that. I've got quite a bit of pink left there as well, so I'm going to dip it in there. And do a pink ring over there as well. I've got a tiny little bit of yellow there. Actually, I'll turn the tube upside down and pick up the yellow. Let's have that overlapping with the white one there. A bit over there as well. And then have a look down at some of the steps, and there's just a few that are a bit plain. I'm going to pick up a couple of the colours and just dot a little bit more on. Again, it's one of those jobs where you've really got to know where to stop. And that's actually creating a really nice effect, those two sort of colours mixed in together. Making a sort of new colour altogether. Tap a little bit of that on the sides as well. Right, now I really am going to leave it there. I think my fingers look just as bad as the ladder now. So I'll leave that to dry for a moment. Go and wash my hands. So just a couple of more things I want to do to finish off, and I want to see if I can glue down these strings at either side. Glue on there, just press it down. I think that would look more natural than them sort of sticking out like that, yeah. So just apply a little bit of glue and then manoeuvre it into a sort of more natural hanging position. Like that. And again, just put a little bit more glue on that top one. I think I took most of it off with my finger. Press that down again. Like that. And then finally I want to glue the cloth into place. So sort of fold it a little bit. Decide which side you like the best, and I think I like that one the best. And again, I don't want it to be hanging too neatly. So just sort of fold it into a shape so that you've got a bit of a hook at the top like that to actually glue onto the rung. And as well, you can apply glue into some of the folds. And I find that the wood glue works quite well on fabric. Just glue that one back as well. And that piece I'm going to hook over the step, so put some glue on the back of there. I think I'll have that there. That sort of second rung down. Squeeze it into place. And then just to give that a more natural look, I'm going to glue it around that side. I'll just hold that into place while I apply a bit of glue at that edge. And then press that down as well. Okay, this little rag is optional. I just think it adds a nice little finishing touch. And there is the completed step ladder. I'm quite pleased with that. Okay, so let's bring in the shed and we'll pop that into position. I'm going to pop those in there. They look good, don't they? So I've actually been working on a display for this little unit today as well, and this is going to be a decorating unit. So we'll have lots of things to do with decorating piled on there, and then I'm going to make a little shelf to go above so that we can fit lots of paint pots and pots of brushes and things like that. And I'm looking forward to making the brushes. I've only ever made one paintbrush before, just as a bit of an experiment. So I'm looking forward to having another go at those. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If so, please do give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you think of the shed so far. If you're making your own messy shed, I'd love to see what you've done with yours. You can share photos over in my Facebook group, Little Bits and Pieces by You. And you'll find a link to that on my Facebook page, and I'll pop the link below. And don't forget to have a look at my Etsy shop as well. You'll find lots of supplies in there, including all of the wood that I use in all of my tutorials, and most of the tools as well. And for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.